All right, so welcome back to my channel. The past couple times I've been focusing on fitness and macros and who I am and all that kind of stuff. And today I kind of want to dive into recovery, and I want to start it off with how I ended my drinking. The last day I drank, it was about, I would say, 5 years ago now. I relapsed once for a couple weeks, and then I got right back off of it because I knew I couldn't handle it. But yeah, I've been drinking steadily since I was 15, and I was very much an alcoholic. I probably still am. I didn't drink every day. I never drank every day, but I did drink. Um, like a binge drink. Like always drank so much. I was always the drunkest in the group. I always drank. I was always the last one out. I did a lot of cocaine to keep me up for drinking. Like I just wanted to drink more. So anyway, the last day I drank I was at home because I got to a point where I was thinking I was saving money and being good and not getting yelled at by my wife, being out of the bars. So I would go and buy a bottle of whiskey, a bottle of Jameson usually, and then either a 6-pack or 12-pack of beer, depending on what kind of beer it was. And I would go home and I would drink. And that would be my day off. And I would just drink and drink and drink until I couldn't drink anymore. And then I'd pass out. And that was my night. So this particular night, I called my old best friend from high school. I used to do that a lot. I would wait until I was really messed up, and then I would call people to talk to them. It's actually a known habit for alcoholics. I would call my dad, or I would call my friends that I've lost touch with. And I was doing that, and my best friend was going through a divorce, and he was telling me all the stuff he was going through, and all of a sudden I got this thought in my head. I'm like, man, if I was divorced, we could go hang out and go get crazy together and be just like old times, you know? So without thinking twice, I was smoking a cigarette, and I threw the cigarette in the kitchen sink, and I yelled at my wife, I want a divorce. And I grabbed my phone, and I grabbed some money, and I left. Yeah. So I tried to go to a couple different bars, and I couldn't get in any bars because they all knew me as a drunk, and I was already too drunk. I finally ended up at the spot that normally I would go to when I was already drunk, so I thought I could get in, and they wouldn't even let me in. And it was getting late. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I ran into these two guys I've never met before, and I needed to charge my phone, so these guys helped me. When we were walking to charge my phone, one of the guys gave me some random pill. I don't know if it was Coke or Adderall or what, but I was just take it, and I was just take anything I wanted, anything that I thought could mess me up. And we went, and I charged my phone with some homeless lady. She let me use one of those plugs in a lamppost that New York has. We went back to the bar for some reason to see if we could get in then, which we obviously couldn't. And then when we were there, one of the other guys got in an altercation with someone coming out of the bar. And then I thought I was being Mr. Tough Guy because I was so drunk. So then I got in the guy's face and told him I want to fight. And he was like this big guy. And he basically laughed me off like he knew he would hurt me, but he didn't. And then he just kind of walked away, right? But this was all in front of this bar. Now this bar happens to be a sister bar to the bar I worked at the time, right? So everything that they saw, they would call my owner and tell him I was doing this, right? But I wasn't thinking about that. I was so messed up. So I knew another bar that opened up early, like at 8 a.m. So me and these two random guys that I've never known before, we ended up going down, and the bar wasn't open yet. So we sat in a bodega and drank 40s and tall boys for 2 or 3 hours. And then come to find out that this guy was actually gay, and he ended up really hitting on me and coming on a little too strong. And so I was like, oh, I gotta go. I gotta get out of here. So I ended up leaving, and I went back home, and I didn't have my keys. So when I get to my door of my apartment, I didn't have my keys, and my wife had already left for work. So I just laid down in front of the door and passed out and fell asleep in the middle of my hallway. And I had neighbors walking by and like shaking me and asking me if I was okay, and I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And then I ended up waking back up at around 11, and I remember it was 11 because I realized that the other bars were open now. The other bars were around the neighborhood. So I got up and I went to the closest bar and I started drinking again. I get a phone call from my boss, and again, he let me have it, and he basically told me to get my shit together, and like, what the hell's going on, starting a fight, all this kind of stuff, and like, you got to figure stuff out. And so I basically almost got fired, and I didn't, thank God. And then I called my wife, who I the night before told I wanted a divorce, and told her I needed keys because I didn't have keys, and she left her job to come and bring me keys to get into the apartment. And I think that was my wake up moment. That was my epiphany moment. I was just like, this beautiful, lovely woman loves me unconditionally, like no matter what I did, and she would come and, you know, help me. And I was just treating her like garbage and trash. So I ended up going back home, and we had already had plans for that night to go to a Mets game with some other friends. So I did go to this Mets game with her, and I drank a little bit, definitely not a lot. Like, I would usually just get blackout all the time, and I definitely didn't drink that much. And when we got home, I took all the bottles in my pantry, all the liquor bottles I had, and I dumped them all out. I threw away all my cigarettes, threw away all the beer, and I told her that was it, you know. And in my head, I thought it was just going to be a break, like 2 weeks. But I think I really knew that I needed to make a change. Like, something needed to change, and this was the time to do it. So the next day, when I woke up, I found an AA meeting in the neighborhood, and I went, and everyone was very nice. And I ended up not using AA for like recovery, like I didn't work the 12 steps or anything, but it was a really good starting off point. So yeah, that was my last day of drinking. Now, it wasn't my rock bottom. So a lot of people say you stop drinking at your rock bottom. I had worse nights than that, like worse days than that, ending up in the jail or in hospital, whatever. But this was, for me, the rectifying moment. This was the time that I had to change. And everyone will find that. They just got to realize when it is. And the reason I tell you all this is I want this channel to help other people too, you know? So, you know, I changed my life. You know, I quit drinking. I got really into fitness, and I got really into philosophy, and now I own the bar that I was bartending at, you know? And I work as a CrossFit coach, or I worked as a CrossFit coach. I recently quit. But all of these options and all these opportunities open up when you stop drinking and when you stop hiding from yourself, which is what I was doing. So yeah, that's it. If you like, you know, please comment and like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, there'll be more stories like this. I'll tell you like how I started and all the different times that I messed up and all this kind of stuff. So we'll get through this together, you know. So thanks for listening.